Peanut butter and jelly, chicken and waffles. You know, some things just go together, kinda like Egoraptor and Jontron on the GameGrumps channel. Well, that is until John left all the way back in 2013, with many to this very day asking, whatever happened there? Well, today on Internet Mysteries, we're going to try to find out.
When a duo disbands in the entertainment industry, how the public reacts largely depends on if the parties involved are being transparent. It's very easy for the audience to feel alienated if their favorite comedian is hiding something, and the same holds true for web-based content creators. From Stupid Mario to more recently Smosh, there are numerous examples of this dilemma occurring online. One of the most infamous, of course, is the departure of John from GameGrumps.
I also love to watch you play them and then have it filmed and shown for our audience at home.
What a coincidence!
Welcome to GameGrumps, where we do that.
The GameGrumps YouTube channel was created on July 18th, 2012 and almost immediately was a success. Within the first 3 weeks, they managed to accumulate over 7 million views across various playthroughs, and quickly hit the 150,000 subscriber milestone. By the end of their first year, they accumulated 1 million followers and garnered a total of 197 million views. Once the ball started moving, they decided to publish multiple videos every single day, and employ John's longtime friend and creative partner Barry Kramer to work as their editor. Though GameGrumps was never the most popular Let's Play channel, the audience they had cultivated was dedicated, to say the least. Fans began producing GameGrumps themed animations and even song remixes out of sheer appreciation for their work, and all seemed to be going well, until the constant stream of content was abruptly stopped on June 15th, 2013. Due to quote-unquote circumstances beyond their control, the channel began uploading only one episode a day, a stark contrast from what fans had gotten used to. Almost immediately, they began to speculate something had gone awry. Their suspicions would be confirmed 10 days later on June 25th. Out of nowhere, it was announced that John would be leaving the show to focus on his own channel. This naturally upset fans because John didn't and still doesn't upload frequently, so they'd be going from daily doses of him to nothing. The goodbye video was also really strange. Titled Ode to John, John's segment was filmed entirely differently from the ending skit, implying that John was no longer in the GameGrumps studio. Interestingly, the excuse given also contradicted several statements John had previously made on the channel. Overall, the video just seemed unplanned, as if John's decision to leave had been done abruptly. Why hadn't there been a transitional period to ease viewers into the new host? And why did the channel introduce new merchandise of John if they had known he was going to leave ahead of time? While the majority of their audience accepted the official explanation, those who read between the lines knew that something didn't seem right. In the months following John's departure, this suspicion only grew. Aaron and other contributors to the channel stopped acknowledging John entirely. This included their editor, who again had known John since high school. This passive aggressiveness would come to a head when Aaron began asking fans to stop mentioning John, claiming that John wished to move on. This ended up leading to John making his own post on the GameGrumps subreddit, demanding that Aaron stop speaking for him. He goes so far as to write in the reply, "I am not trying to put GameGrumps behind me, but maybe they are." Food for thought. But that was only the beginning. In spite of the GameGrumps being adamant that the reason they gave was the truth, Total Biscuit tweeted that he knew what actually had happened, but there was no chance anyone was going to find out. It was also revealed that the reason John's footage was shot on an entirely different camera was because he had left Los Angeles to live in New York with his girlfriend at the time, an artist named Nicole Rodriguez. That detail will be important later on. Unsurprisingly, once all these facts had come to light, rumors about John's departure began to spread. And with an audience as dedicated as theirs, it wasn't long before this commitment became obsessive. Their fascination would eventually accumulate into Conspiracy Grumps, a subreddit that existed solely to speculate about the controversy. Let's examine some of the forum's most popular theories, to see what ideas we can definitively rule out. One common belief at the time was that John had left GameGrumps because he didn't like Steam Train being on their channel. This rumor, however, failed to address the discrepancies of Ode to John. Steam Train had been in development for quite some time, so if John wanted to leave, the GameGrumps would have had more than enough time to ease in the new host. The way it happened seemed too abrupt for this to be the case. Another commonly spread rumor was that John had gotten into some kind of physical conflict with Susie, Aaron's wife. Albeit ironically, this had become one of the most popular interpretations of the fallout. While the severity of the conflict ranges from theory to theory, the most infamous is the claim that John hit Susie, and then promptly fled to New York to escape Aaron's wrath. This, obviously, was not true, and it was eventually debunked by Nicole, who stated, "If you want at least one thing to be put to rest, nothing involved any physical trauma." But that doesn't rule out any conflict with Susie from happening altogether. Interestingly, a lot of the theory past this point is a result of pot stirring by Nicole. While she was still with John, there was a period of time where she visited and commented on the subreddit frequently. Though she alluded to there being some sort of non-disclosure agreement preventing her from outright stating what happened, her input was useful in ruling out a lot of theories, so expect to see her throughout the rest of this video. The most notable example of Nicole pot stirring were screenshots taken from a chat of a Twitch stream. Here she drunkenly insults Susie multiple times, and then compares her to Yoko Ono, who was the wife of the late John Lennon, and she's often blamed for the disbandment of the Beatles. Nicole did, however, confirm that John was not kicked off the channel and left willingly. This comparison was later corroborated by the Jontron era remixer Jerry Terry, in response to accusations that Nicole was in fact the Yoko Ono of the channel. Jerry revealed that John had been considering leaving GameGrumps for quite some time. It was only Nicole who dissuaded him and encouraged him to stay. He then went on to write, "If you're looking for a manipulative Yoko-esque figure, you're definitely firing in the wrong direction." The most obvious implication here being that they should look in the opposite camp and consider Susie. But by far the most substantial information to surface as a result of the subreddit is a set of events known as the E3 incident. And unlike the other two theories, the core of this one was rooted in facts. On November 3rd, 2014, a Reddit user by the name of Talented Lobster created a timeline of what he believed to be proof that the incident that led to John leaving GameGrumps occurred at E3 2013. Even on a surface level, this is interesting, because E3 took place less than 2 weeks before Ode to John. Let's take a look at the evidence they provided. The timeline is constructed of tweets from various members of GameGrumps who attended E3. On day 1, a tweet from Barry reveals that him and John were attending a party together. He was for sure at E3 this day, as they had photos of him at the con floor. On day 2, a tweet from Grant Kirkhope reveals that John didn't show up to E3 that day. And meanwhile, Aaron appears on the Game Station stream, and in John's place is Barry. On day 3, John replies to Grant's tweet, claiming that he didn't go because of the flu. He doesn't show up to E3 that day either. The next day, both his and Aaron's Twitter go silent. And finally, on June 15th, the GameGrumps announced that they will be switching back to the 1 episode a day schedule, for reasons beyond their control. Clearly, something happened. The evidence speaks for itself. It appears that something happened at E3 to cause John to stop attending the event prematurely. And amazingly, John all but confirms this timeline of events, writing underneath the timeline post, "Damn. You guys are good." So sometime between June 11th and June 13th, John and Aaron had a falling out. But even with all this analysis, no one really knew why. That is until people kept on digging. And we'll find out about this new batch of theories after a brief word from our sponsor. Are you a graphic designer trying to expand your business? Maybe a gardener trying to get more work? Or maybe you're simply just a regular Joe who wants to expand his online presence. All these things can be achieved with a website through Squarespace. In this day and age, it's often essential to have an online presence for people to take you seriously. And now you easily can create a beautiful website or online store with the award-winning templates of Squarespace. This is an all-in-one platform to create a professional website. There's nothing to install, patch, or upgrade ever. You'll also receive award-winning 24/7 customer support. The process is super simple. Squarespace offers a unique domain experience that's fully transparent and simple to set up. And then once you choose that domain name, you can choose a website template that matches what you're going for. To get started, go to squarespace.com/GamerFromMars to get a free trial and 10% off your first purchase. That again is squarespace.com/GamerFromMars, and I'll also provide a link to it in the description. After John essentially verified that there had been a falling out at E3 that year, the most prevailing theory was that it could have been due to Polaris. Previously known as the Game Station, Polaris was a YouTube network owned by Maker Studios that launched on June 13th of that year. It was in the process of transitioning at E3. Aaron could have wanted to get further involved with the network while John wanted the channel to stay where it was. In this scenario, the incident would have been an argument about the future of the show, and this theory was seemingly corroborated by a few key points as well. Firstly, the party that John attends on day one was actually a get-together for partners of Polaris. This was confirmed in a post by YouTuber Nintendo Capri Sun, who met and took footage of John while he was there. Capri Sun notes that he had looked all over the party that night for Egoraptor, but was pretty sure he wasn't there. Secondly, if it was because of business decisions, it would explain the non-disclosure agreement. If they were negotiating contracts, they wouldn't really be allowed to discuss the details of the agreement. And finally, the incident took place extremely close to the 1-year anniversary of GameGrumps. This is important because John had revealed previously that they had to sign paperwork when they first started the channel. This implies that the channel could have been created in cooperation with Maker, and since it was a brand new venture, the contract they originally signed probably only lasted the first year. Maybe they were at E3 to negotiate the terms with them. Well, maybe not, because unfortunately, despite all the circumstantial evidence, the theory was deemed incorrect by Nicole herself. Like she did with many others, she replied to a thread proposing the idea with a singular nah. So if that wasn't it, we can only assume that the issue was something personal. An interesting note that many people don't realize is that Nicole had actually gone to E3 that year as well, so she has to know what really happened. Presumably, she and John left for New York shortly after the incident, and really if John didn't want to get more involved with Polaris, why would he later let them fund his entire Starcade series? It's more likely that the NDA is a separate issue entirely. The truth is, we may never truly know why John left GameGrumps, but at the very least we know why it wasn't. And by using this deductive reasoning, it's easy to come close to a conclusion. So the rest of this video is dedicated to why Internet Mysteries believes GameGrumps ended. Firstly, let's address something that will be important to characterize the relationship between John and Aaron at the time. If you recall, the remixer Jerry Terry revealed that John had wanted to leave GameGrumps for months before the E3 incident. But why? Well, John may have accidentally revealed the answer to this question in an interaction he had with Reddit user Zugerdor994. As he tells it, he met John in 2014 at the Screw Attack Gaming Convention sometime around 2 to 3 a.m. This is what he recalls John saying. As most of us know, John was a huge Egoraptor fan before he actually met Aaron. It might have been a result of this that Aaron treated John the way he did. According to John, Aaron's treatment of him was less like a friend and more like a lackey, certainly putting the ego in Egoraptor. John didn't seem to fully realize this up until the time he left. We can verify that this meeting really happened because the image of him and John still exists online. It's also possible that he's lying about what he was told, but it's also possible that John really did slip him some details. Back to the subreddit, Nicole also implied in one post that Aaron had been verbally abusive to John. And on the co-optional podcast, both Dodger and Total Biscuit seemed to side with John in the fallout. Now on to the incident itself. What happened in the hours after the E3 party and before the roundtable interview? While the public excuse was that John was feeling under the weather, that could have easily just been a PR move. What could John have done that led him to feel so awful that he was unable to attend the rest of E3? If you watch enough clips of him, John will admit that he is extremely susceptible to drinking. Perhaps John could have felt so hungover after the party that he told Aaron he was unable to attend the Game Station interview. Maybe this is what had upset Aaron. As the rumors mentioned before, John and Aaron's relationship may have already been pretty tense, so John essentially sitting out of an entire event could have been the straw that broke the camel's back. Maybe John, sick of being subjected to Aaron's anger, decided that enough was enough and that he was finally going to move to New York to live with Nicole. We do know that once the GameGrumps returned to their studio, they began to upload only one video a day. Maybe this was to buy time in case they convinced John to come back. Regardless, he refuses to return and records a goodbye video for the fans. Ode to John is released, and the rest is history. While this theory seemed to hit all the boxes, it had never actually been proven that alcohol was served at the party. So the final step was to verify that him getting drunk was plausible. After all, this could lead to an entire theory being thrown out the window. So we attempted to find more details about the party, along with other creators who attended with John. As it turns out, the after party was actually just a concert for a chiptune band. It was an open concert, though Polaris provided tickets to its partners for free. While it's unknown when John left the event exactly, he was last seen at 12:47 a.m. CST, which would have been 10:47 p.m. in Los Angeles. We did find this image of John at the event with a fan, but who knows if he's actually even drunk here. Eventually, we ended up just doing a query of all references to the band on Twitter from June 11th to June 13th, and after a lot of scrolling, we actually found a tweet that gave us our answer, and it came from another Polaris attendee. Yes, in this obscure tweet from the Warp Zone that it seems no one else was able to find, they say that there was in fact an open bar. That means that drinks were not only being served to John, but given to him for free, which makes the hangover theory even more plausible. At the end of all this, we still don't have a definitive answer though. While one plausible theory is that Aaron got upset at John for drinking too much, we'll never truly know until somebody says something, which they won't because it really doesn't matter anymore. A lot has changed since the falling out. Ross and Barry ended up leaving GameGrumps on their own accord, John and Aaron eventually put an end to the silent treatment and reunited for the Starcade series, and the GameGrumps brand severed all ties with Polaris, and John and Nicole eventually broke up. What happened on that fateful day itself just isn't relevant. The only reason we're still talking about it now is because of the mystique around it. The stigma and the fact that after all these years we don't have an answer makes it one of the most infuriating, unsolved internet mysteries of all time.
Well, at this point, I think it's highly unlikely that we're ever going to be able to find out the complete truth. There may be some day later on down the road where enough time had passed that we'll finally get answers to the questions, including why John left. But until then, we'll just have to wait and see.
Alright, cut. That was a good shot. Is there anything else that you want me to do before I go home?
While I'm closing up these lights, can you just get me a Coca-Cola?
Yeah. I'll be right back. Alright, here's your Coke. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. See you.